Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Council of One's Babylon 5 review. And I'm your host, the Ambassador, and with me this afternoon, I've got Vienna Wolf, Classic Comics, and Mountains of Elysium. And today we're going to be discussing the episode A Distant Star from Season 2. And, hold on one second, guys. If y'all want to do some quick intros or anything, and I will be right back.
Hi, I'm the crazy lady that writes superhero space opera.
And I'm the crazy guy the ambassador's trying to teach about Star Wars.
There you go.
And I'm Classic Comics. Got a channel here on YouTube, cover comics and other pop culture information. Actually, I'm uploading my reaction video to the Dune trailer right now.
Oh, yeah. I saw that today, and I'm like, I gotta do a reaction to that. Gotta do it. So, but anyway, yeah. So, well, Vienna is going to have to leave here shortly, so we're going to let her have the floor for the next few minutes and everything, so she can get her thoughts out about A Distant Star, and then me and the fellows and everything will follow behind. So, Vienna, we yield the floor to you, fellow council lady.
Oh, okay. Well, again, just like any woman would, I'd be like, this is the 10th episode where Sheridan and Dylan really open up with each other with what I'd like to call the talks, where they kind of bolster each other. Yay! So, yeah, that's probably my favorite part of this episode is like, have you ever had any long talks with Dylan? I just like the way they basically uplift each other when they're having a bad day. And this is the very noticeable episode because even Maynard's like, wait, she's a Minbari, but she don't look Minbari. But unlike the rest of the Minbari, he's just more curious than, basically standoffish, like the later Ropo episode, where those humans were really angry at her appearance. So, yeah. And plus, actually, now that I think about it, this episode also has a little bit of precursor to this fun shadow shenanigans later for one certain Star Fury pilot because he gets very interested about what's out there. What's out there isn't good, sir. It's going to be a sad day for you later on. That, and I genuinely like how Ivanova is like, maybe you should step away from all this, sir, because when he does end up getting lost in hyperspace, Sheridan's pretty close to that problem right there because it doesn't matter like when they have guest characters, all these guest characters are a good foil for the character that's being promoted. In this case, it's Sheridan. So that's my big things about that. I'm good at getting things out of the way if I have to.
Well, if you hit upon several interesting points and everything there, particularly with the first of the talks between Ambassador Deland and Captain Sheridan and what have you. And fellas, anything you want to piggyback on that and everything in terms of what Vienna's had to say so far?
I suppose it's
well, I'd say go ahead.
Fire away, Classic.
Okay, well, this it's kind of a mixed episode for me. I don't feel it's as good as the three that came before. I think the first three episodes are better. The big thing for me is I think the actor who plays Captain Maynard, I just don't think he's very well cast. I don't think he fits the role. I think they were wanting him to play very well. And honestly, he just doesn't do that good a job. He's the guy, Russ Tamblyn, he was actually on Twin Peaks. He played a character on that show.
I was not aware of that, so thank you for filling us in on that, Classic. I appreciate it. Mountains, you were going to say?
No, I was saying it was nice foreshadowing for where Delenn and Sheridan will go. They starting to connect. And I did like Maynard's first reaction to Delenn. He was friendly, his personality, but he was very standoffish. More not not because of what she looked like, but because she was Minbari. He was out on the
Yeah.
rim for 4 or 5 years. So that is very close, just halfway between the Minbari War ending and this point. So he hasn't had as much time to connect with Minbari. And it was an interesting reaction, I thought.
Yeah, because Sheridan says to Maynard, is that what Minbari normally look like? He's like, no, when I came on station, she was in a coon, and then poof, out she comes. And very quickly to the chat, Sir Nerdlock, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it. Any length of time and everything is very much appreciated. So,
But that's what replays are for, in case real life and work gets in the way.
that is true.
And actually, this show also, this particular episode, I like the dynamic between Ivanova and Sheridan. Like, Sheridan's like, Ivanova, is this me? Am I supposed to be a paper pusher? What's going on here?
Indeed. So, well, and the interesting thing about this episode and everything, and Classic, I understand where you're coming from and everything, because this episode is kind of a mixed bag. It's got a lot of different things going on in it and everything, and I guess to a certain perspective and everything, Maynard, or the guy who played Maynard and everything, wasn't the best casting. Honestly, for me, it never really bothered me, but that's one person's perspective. So, and of course, as Mountain just put into the chat, we got the famous prayer and everything.
Yeah,
that is uttered so many times, or a few times throughout the series. Honestly, it's a favorite prayer of mine. So, and it's not even Christian; it's Egyptian. So,
It is, but it's I like the C.S. Lewis approach that anything, whether you know God or not, if you stand by your vow, if you do the will of God without knowing Him, you're still in service to Him. Just because that prayer wasn't written to our God doesn't mean it doesn't apply.
that is true. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. So, the other interesting thing for me and everything about this episode is you're dealing with Sheridan trying to acclimate to commanding a large station. And he's like, and Fiona, you hit upon it yourself. And he's like, look at my desk. It's a complete and utter mess. Is this me? He's like, you know me. You remember me from when I was in command on Io. He's like, this is nothing like anything. And Ivanova has to snap him into reality a little bit and say, hey, look, Babylon 5 is not like any posting you've had before. So, yeah, you're still trying to get your feet underneath you. So, yeah, your desk is going to be a little messy, but you know what? The conversation between Sheridan and Delenn and everything at the end there, where she says, the universe puts us where we need to be, not always where we expect to be. So, and very quick to the chat, Lewis X Sparrow, good afternoon. Good to see you, my friend. And he, Lewis says, I like Russ Tamblyn, but then I like some of his early films, so I was disposed towards him. So, and you know what? That's okay. So, guys, anything? What else you want to cover on this? Or anything that I said that you want to delve into deeper?
Well, like Fiona Wolf mentioned, this is kind of one of the first of many episodes where we have Sheridan and Delenn having kind of a heart-to-heart talk, and her dispensing some kind of wisdom to kind of guide him along. Of course, there'll be several of those over the course of the series, and they always do them well. Bruce Boxleitner and Mira Furlan, I thought, always did. They had good chemistry on camera.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They did have very good chemistry for the simple fact that they played well off of one another and everything. They were both intellectuals. They weren't always nuts and bolts people and everything. Okay, I don't mean that. Let me strike that, guys. They very much are intellectuals, but they look at the universe from different perspectives. And it's in sharing their perspectives that they start to grow to respect and admire each other's input and everything into their lives. So, and the interesting thing that I'll say and everything, and then Fiona and everything, I'll let you pick back up. Sheridan's dilemma is something we've all faced in life, for the simple fact that we have always, or for when we start a new job or a new career or whatever, there's always that transition period where we don't feel like we quite fit in. But then at some point, it finally clicks and we finally get our feet underneath them. And I think this episode was a good opportunity to explore that particular dynamic. So, anyways, I yield the floor.
That kind of reminds me. I think it's like an episode or two later where everybody's asking him, "All settled in, Ambassador." Because even they were picking up on the fact that Sheridan was feeling a little bit out of sorts at some points. Which even in the previous episode, how Eric told him like, "Hey, you wouldn't be taking advantage of this situation," and then he even point blank tells Sheridan, "You're being taken advantage of." So, yeah, in this episode, it kind of like comes to a head, and then Delenn kind of brings it back down to earth, pun intended.
Yeah, that is very, very true. It's not always easy to realize that. How do I want to say this? Guys, why don't you pick up, and then I'll figure out how I want to word this.
I was wondering. I think I mentioned it in the episode where Sheridan met his sister. That they mentioned there that he had buried himself in work, and after becoming free from that, I wonder, has the build-up in his desk come because he stopped doing that, or partly because? And that was just something that struck me when I was on the last couple of times I've watched that episode. He didn't seem to be as on. He seemed to be more relaxed than he was portrayed as previous. That he'd kind of embraced outside of his role as captain. He became John Sheridan.
Yeah, and this episode kind of does develop the thing that when people meet you again in the future, it could be a couple of years, they'll be like, "Wow, you've really changed for X, Y, or Z." Because that's what Maynard was mainly surprised about. He was more used to the gung-ho, younger Sheridan.
Yeah, because for Sheridan, the majority of his career, he's been on small stations, he's been on cruisers and so on, and he's a fish out of water in a manner of speaking, because commanding a station of this size and this scale, yeah, he's got the skill set, but it does still take time to acclimate to. And there's a point during the episode when he asks himself, am I really where I'm supposed to be? Should I be out there still on a ship? Should I be out there on a explorer class ship and everything with my buddy and everything, instead of riding a desk and everything, as he says? And you know what? Being out there on the frontier actually has an appeal to it. You're always expect you are going to see new things. You're going to see stuff that you would never expect to see or anything in normal space, and so on. And you look at your entire world shrink down to a little office with a little desk, and you're like, geez, how the hell did I end up here? And I think for Sheridan, this was his moment and everything for him to have that discovery.
Yeah, I think that's a theme that comes up a lot in the Star Trek films. After Kirk is promoted up to admiral. You know, they keep coming back to the idea that he should have stayed a captain, you know, and shouldn't have accepted promotion. And of course, eventually he does return to that.
Yes. Very, very, very true. Because Spock says it perfectly. I guess, okay, Fiona had to leave. So, well, Fiona, we'll catch you on the flip side, kiddo. You have a good night at work. So, yeah, and, you know, Spock says it perfectly in Star Trek 2. It was a mistake for you to take promotion. Commanding a starship is your first best destiny. Anything else is a waste of material. But the thing for Sheridan is he's a commander. And you can be a commander anywhere. Okay, well, he's a captain, but y'all guys, you know, you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think part of it is because he's a military guy. And while there are military personnel on Babylon 5, it's really a, you know, it's more of a commercial and diplomatic post rather than an outright military. So, you know, it's just, and it works differently as far as how you expect things to be done. And, you know, when you in the military, you give an order, it's just kind of like, yes, sir. And then they go and do it. But when you're dealing with civilians, it may not be that simple.
Yeah, very true. There's not necessarily that military structure, and it's difficult to kind of put that military structure into a place that needs to be a little more flexible rather than being so rigid and everything, because you are dealing with different personalities. You are dealing with different species of aliens and everything else under the sun, and you've got situations that are going to pop up on a station like that that would not pop up elsewhere. So
I think we see something similar when Lockley takes command. That she's going, I run a tight ship, I do this. And who is the lieutenant? He's a tech at the moment.
Corwin?
Corwin, that's it. Mm-hmm. And he tells her, you know what? Stations like this don't run by the book. And so it's the same. Well, and we find out those two were married to not Corwin and Lockley, but Sheridan and Lockley. So they come with a very similar mindset. And I do know they talked that the problem was they couldn't have two similar people in the same marriage who were both military, both control. And that's why their marriage didn't work. But they were both perfectly suited to command Babylon 5.
Yes, absolutely.
And just going back on what you said, should Sheridan have stayed a captain and gone on his explorer ship? He could have been a great captain, but being on Babylon 5 opened him up to new skill sets that made him an even greater personality within the universe. So sometimes a change of scenery, doing something new, opens you up to new skill sets you didn't think you had.
Yeah, he definitely had to learn the diplomatic angle to it, the political angle, dealing with the the Council of Non-Aligned Worlds and everything like that.
He seemed a little bit more vocal towards them initially than Sinclair would have been. Yeah,
I thought that was actually what I thought the part of the role that I thought Michael O'Hare really was good at was Sinclair being kind of the peacemaker and kind of building consensus and stuff like that, and that he wasn't so great with the kind of action hero type stuff. And whereas Box Lightner is just kind of the opposite.
Yeah, sorry about that. I forgot I had muted my mic. The thing is, Sheridan is very much a take charge type of guy. It's not that Sinclair wasn't, but he tried to play the diplomat. He tried to be congenial to everybody. But with Sheridan, he does have that personable aspect to himself, but he's first and foremost a military guy, and he's not going to tolerate a whole lot of guff and everything from those that are working underneath him. Although the majority of everybody that works underneath him understands that he is a military guy, and they try to work with him for that reason, because they do realize that there is an efficiency and there is a ease and everything of doing it and everything in the quickest and most efficient way possible.
I do like that Sheridan is open to correction and listens to what his subordinates advise, that Ivanova chews him out. And yet he didn't kind of going, no, I'm the boss, you follow my orders. He's going, okay. He took what she said on board, which is actually an aspect of Sinclair that they share, that Sinclair also listened. And yeah.
Well, I think part of that may be because, early on, I think I don't think he's mentioned it yet, but there's one point where Sheridan mentions how he once met the Dalai Lama.
Yes,
and because his father was actually a diplomat, which makes it funny that he's not initially seems to be that good at it. So he seems like he's had a kind of not like a standard military background, you would say. Mm-hmm. He's had he comes with a much broader perspective to it, I think, and that's probably kind of why he's able to do that.
Yeah, and being the child of a diplomat and everything, you may not always understand what the parent's doing, but as over time, it does leave an impression upon you. And Sheridan, even when he's talking to Ivanova, this is your opportunity to start to learn the fine art of diplomacy. But where diplomacy does have its place, oftentimes you do need a person that is willing to take charge and do the hard things, make the hard decisions, say the hard things, and oftentimes that will be Sheridan down the road and everything, because he doesn't back down in terms of when Earth Force is wanting to charge him and Ivanova and everything for a larger suite. And then he figures out that little I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. But he figures out a way and everything to circumnavigate around what Earth Force is trying to do.
Yeah.
And everything. And go ahead, Mountains, please.
No, actually, I was just thinking that had Sinclair faced that one, paying extra for your room, he probably would have just paid it. But Sheridan is the guy that was needed. As Delenn will describe him as, you need to be dangerous, and that's the man Sheridan could be. Sinclair was always diplomatic.
Yeah, very true. Well, guys, we've kind of spent we've spent a good chunk of time on Sheridan. Is there anything else in the episode that you wanted to dig into?
Well, as humor, the food plan was fun.
Yeah, this was the diet episode.
Oh, yes, the diet episode, because Garibaldi's still recovering from being shot. Ivanova's still recovering from her busted ankle. And Sheridan's like, why am I being punished again, doctor? And Franklin's like, well, a doctor and a patient, they're like a team. And then Sheridan's like, well, beings, we're on the same team. Don't you think you should do the food plan as well? And of course, okay, then actually that does lead into a cute little, quirky little character story and everything in terms of Garibaldi and everything, the whole Banya Cauda situation.
Yeah.
And of all people, it was Ambassador Delenn that narked on him and didn't realize that she was narking on him. So I will say of the episodes we've seen thus far, I think this one does have a good bit of humor, but it does have a good bit of heart as well. So that was a nice thing, honestly, to see.
Yeah.
And kind of building the relationship between Garibaldi and Franklin a
Dr.
little
Franklin.
further,
Yeah.
and Dr. Frank a little bit further. Yeah. So, and anytime we
You
get,
know what?
go ahead, Mountains, please.
No, it was just the quote with Franklin and Ivanova that I thought was classic. The figures, all my life I fought against imperialism. Now suddenly I am the expanding Russian frontier, but with very nice borders.
Yes, well, as our good friend Just Another would say, very, very nice borders. So, but yeah, go ahead. No,
sorry, no, I was just wondering there, how many oranges did Sheridan have to eat to put on those 10 pounds?
Well, it's probably not
Yeah.
just oranges. He's probably gotten to be able to have a steak or something, hopefully, or anything there on the station, or something that resembles a steak. Because, okay, I'm going to say it. John Sheridan looks like a steak eater to me. I'm just saying.
Right.
He certainly doesn't look like a vegan.
Well,
So,
this was actually this episode was also a big one for Keffer, Lieutenant Keffer. Probably maybe his biggest episode, really.
yeah.
Except until the one where he dies. But other than that,
Essentially,
with him encountering the shadow vessel, of course, in hyperspace, and kind of him becoming determined to kind of figure out who or what that is.
Yeah.
And of course, we get a good appearance by the shadow vessels in this too.
Yeah. Like 2 or 3 times or anything. It's actually a shadow vessel that knocks the Cortez off course. No, it wasn't. It was a short in the system or anything. It wasn't.
Yeah, just some convenient malfunction.
Yeah.
And
I'm just gonna say it.
Sure.
The maintenance crew there on Babylon 5, how the hell did they miss that? I mean, again, the ship's huge, the ship's big, but you would think they would do a better job. Whoever missed that, dock them some pay. Of course, that may cause another strike or another blue flu or whatever. But you know what? Do a better job. So
could have been from the same thing. What is it that came up in By Any Means Necessary? The cheapest bidder built the Explorer ship and used substandard parts. So maybe they might not have seen it.
Yeah, could
and
be.
It also explained, when I watched this choice, why can't they just use the jump engines to get out? Because that's how those Explorer ships work. But I believe there wasn't enough power left to operate the engines. That's why they were stuck in hyperspace.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, they had just enough power to keep them stationary, but they were starting to drift. So, and honestly, I'll say this for Sheridan, that was very smart thinking and everything for how they were able to retrieve the Cortez. They used, essentially they used, as he said, a page from the lifeboat service. So I thought that was actually very ingenious or anything, using 17th or 18th century and the 23rd or 24th century. So.
And also clever from Keffer to use his guns to fire when he couldn't communicate. To use his guns to fire in the direction they needed to go.
Yeah,
it was quick thinking.
It was. Otherwise, the Cortez or anything probably would have been lost and everything. And amazingly, they only lost one fire in the whole thing, and that was due to Empires Falls because of a shadow vessel. And, I love the conversation between what's his face, Russ Tamblin's character, Maynard, and Sheridan and everything, when you saw about seeing stuff out on the rim or out in the hyperspace, and then poof, we get a shadow vessel right there, right smack dab there in front of God and everybody, and we know that this is not a good thing to be around.
Yeah, I do like that little account he gives of how he saw something. And of course, they don't do any flashbacks to show you what he saw. They just let him describe it. But, we can kind of figure out what he's talking about. I thought that was really well done, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, and, that's the great thing about the Shadows. It's a slow build. We don't get everything all at once. I think that was actually better that we didn't. Because...
Right.
this is a kind of analogy I think everybody here will get. It's like the Darth Vader effect. You see him for the first time, that's all you want to see. But the less you see of him, the more intrigued you are. And I think the great thing that Straczynski and the writers and producers and everything did was they didn't overwhelm us with the shadows too much. We got just enough to whet our appetite, and then when the time came, we got more. But it was necessary for the story. It wasn't just fan service, thankfully. So, because they made a similar comment and everything, I think in it was one of the commentaries on Rogue One. They only had 2 scenes really with Vader in it, because anymore, and then everybody would be like, okay, when's the next Vader scene? And the other characters would have been drowned out. So, because while he is a part of the story, he wasn't the focus of the story. And the same thing here. The shadows are a part of the story, but they're not the focus.
It's for something as large as the shadows are supposed to be. It's better we don't see too much of them. That they should be, that our minds should make up there's something bad.
Yeah.
Like the ring, was it the wraiths in Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, actually, when I first watched Babylon 5 the first time, the shadow vessels really made me think of the Nazgul.
Yes.
That's where my mind went with it.
Well, and that's not entirely accurate, because if you think about the way the ships move and the sound they make when they do move, they're almost a character unto themselves and everything, because they almost have a vocalization. They make a sound, and
right.
It is not a pleasant sound. It's a very unnerving and unsettling sound and everything that they make, and it's kind of meant to set you on edge, much like with the ring wraiths and everything from Lord of the Rings. So
I believe it's part of that sound is the mind trapped in the shadow vessel has no control, and it's probably the scream of the mind going, "I want out," and that would be really that's even horrific in itself. That the shadow, the mind of the shadow, is just as much a victim as what the ship inflicts on others.
Yeah, pretty much. So. Let's see. Well, is there anything else about this episode you fellas wanted to touch on and everything?
I would point out that this episode was written by DC Fontana.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
wrote several Star Trek episodes.
Yeah, classic. Thank you for bringing that up, because that almost did slip my mind. Yeah, we had another entry from a great Star Trek writer and everything for this episode. So, and wherever DC Fontana is now, I imagine probably resting in peace. I'm glad Babylon 5 is around to showcase their talent, because DC Fontana was truly a gifted writer, and much respect to him and everything for all the great stories they gave us. Shame we don't have more DC Fontanas out there. So, of course, I imagine we do. They're hiding.
And they're not in Hollywood, that's for sure.
Sad but true. And honestly, they kind of need to be. I wish they were, but it is what it is. And
I was going to say, I wonder, as production costs come down, where people are able to do more on their home PCs, will these writers again be able to self-produce work, self-publish, put work out there, and put out shows, put out animations, put out homemade movies that have quality, that will make people aware of things? I wonder if that's why we may not have the technology quite now. We're almost there.
Yeah, it's heading that way.
Well, if you look at what our good friend Adega's doing, I don't know what his last announcement was, but it sounds like he's going to be getting another book published,
Oh,
and
really?
he hasn't said for sure. I'm going off of hints, bits and pieces, and everything that he can't come out and say it because of most likely an NDA, which I understand, a non-disclosure agreement. But it sounds like, from all indications, he might be getting another one of his books published. And I say bravo. And talking about home animation and everything, there is the channel Darth Angelus who's doing those little short adaptations of Heir to the Empire, and I've watched several of them. I think that they just recently uploaded another one, and it looks very good.
What channel is that?
I think the name of the channel is Darth Angelus. Give me a minute. I'll look it up, and I'll. Everything. It's Heir to the Empire, and they're doing fan animations and everything, and they're vocalized and everything. They've got audio to them and everything. People are doing the speaking parts. Just a minute. Come on.
There's another guy who did a Warhammer 40K movie himself, was Astartes. That is he produced it himself. That is an amazing animated work. There's no speaking roles. It's all animation, but it's an amazing work. You can tell it didn't need dialogue to tell the story.
Yeah, here it is. The name of the channel is Darth Angelus. I'll put the link and everything into the chat and everything. I think they're up to like chapter 8 so far and everything, and they have been exceedingly good. And everything. I mean, obviously that's not what I wanted to do. Go away. No, you go away too. There we go. All right, copy and paste. Here we go. All right, there it is. That's linked to Darth Angelus' channel. That's actually the link to the very first chapter of Heir to the Empire. So definitely give that a check out and everything. If you're a Star Wars fan, well, I've read Darth. I've read Heir to the Empire. I've read the whole Thrawn trilogy and everything. Well, the original Thrawn trilogy. I know they just recently did another Thrawn novel and everything. I think it was done by Timothy Zahn called Ascendancy or something. So
yeah,
but and I've heard a lot of people are saying it's actually it's a really good book. So hey,
yeah, that whole series is pretty good.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, it's an interesting character that intrigues people because we never saw a character like Thrawn before. This wasn't a force wielder. This was the military genius. Except for maybe like General Veers, which only got like one movie with and everything. It was only a couple of scenes and everything, and not much else.
Yeah, the Empire and military genius don't really go together too well. They basically just relied on overwhelming firepower most of the time.
Unfortunately, yeah, that is true. So, but anyway. Well, guys, I think unless there's something else about this episode you want to talk about and everything, we've pretty well covered it and everything. So we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up here. Everything. I mean, this was a fairly straightforward episode. It doesn't have a whole lot of ins and outs to it and everything. So, but if there is something you want to bring up or anything, I'm all ears.
I suppose there was one line where they're asking, "Does anything live in hyperspace?" Now, the shadows go there, but we find out in Crusade that there actually is. When those creatures Me Too'd the Excalibur.
Okay.
When was it the well where Galen was looking for the Well of Souls?
Forever?
Well of Forever, yes. And they met those creatures in deep hyperspace.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I haven't had a chance. I've got Crusade, but I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm kind of trying to go in chronological order of the whole series. And sorry about the car racing by the house. My apologies. apparently somebody thinks they have four wheels and an engine. They can go vroom vroom. Anyway, all right. Well, fellas, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here and everything. If there's anything you want to plug for your channels before we close out or anything, by all means, do so, and then we'll call it a day.
All right. Well, I've got a reaction video to the Dune trailer that's probably going to be on my channel shortly after I sign off here because I just need to kind of get it posted.
Mm-hmm.
So please come by and check that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I might do something about that because I did watch it. And, oh boy, that looks promising. I just hope it doesn't turn out to be a giant letdown. So, Mountains, what about you? Anything you got coming up? Anything you want to plug before we call it a day?
I have that video of the best crew in sci-fi as voted for on my Twitter channel. Almost ready. I have one clip to add, then rendered, and hopefully we'll have it up by the weekend. And so
Excellent.
grab your pitchforks and get ready for that.
So is it Star Trek crews or?
It's I tried to pick from across different franchises because I said you could pick everyone from Trek, but I've picked it was mainly Trek, Babylon 5, and Stargate that I chose the people from. With a few from other franchises as well thrown in different votes.
Excellent. Yeah, I know you've been working on that for a while, so it'll be nice to see how that all turned out. So make sure you pop by Mountain's channel and check that out and everything once he posts and everything. So
I'll let know on Twitter when it's ready to go or when it's up.
Excellent. So, all right. Well, as for me, later this evening, I'm actually going to be popping over to Mr. CCDV's channel and everything. He's going to be continuing his theology talks, religion talks, and everything. I forget exactly what he calls them, but it's along those lines. And we're going to be talking about end-time prophecies. So then that'll be at 6 p.m. Central Time and everything. And then, of course, this I do want to give one update that there will not be an installment of Ray Who, my Star Wars fan fiction this week. I just have not had time to sit down and write out anything. So I'm going to push that to next week and everything. And I might actually do that. I might do every other week and everything, an installment. That way it does give me time to write and put everything together the way I want and everything. So be looking for that sometime next week. This Friday night, we'll be starting the ambassadorial birthday party watch parties, and that'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time, and we'll be watching Fifth Element this Friday. So I've still got a few spots, so if anybody in the chat wants to be a part or whatever, get a hold of me on Twitter or on Discord or on Instagram and let me know. So anyways, to everybody that's in the chat, those that were active and those who were just lurking, thank you all for being here. It is greatly appreciated as always. You have a great day, and until next time, this is the Ambassadors signing off.